in. As I call your name, if you could unmute and just confirm if you do have a name on the screen, the name is correct, and then let me know who you're representing here today. So I'll start with Margaret Comey.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. And who are you representing today, or what brings you here today?
My husband and I are Bayard Drive residents, and there's a matter before you on that regarding the zoning change there, or variance or something.
Sure. Yep, that sounds right. Neighboring property owner. Welcome.
Thank you.
Move over to Charlie. Charlie's iPhone.
Yes, hello.
Hi. Could you give me your full name and tell me who it is you're representing here today, whether the applicant, the owner, someone involved with the project, or a neighboring property owner, or someone else?
Yeah, it's Charles Pierce, neighboring property owner.
Great. Welcome. Maggie Tall.
Yes, hi, I'm Margaret Tall, and I'm the neighboring property owner where the side variance is being requested.
Okay. Great. I see we have Trey Sheldon from the zoning department. Welcome, Trey. Hello. Zobrist Design Group. Is it it's Kurt, right? If you could unmute Kurt.
Correct, David. Thank you.
And Mr. Zobrist is the applicant on the project. We have Pat Veith. Mr. Veith, if you could unmute.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Vazant, 3536 Bayard and Zobrist Design Group.
Got it. Okay, with Zobrist.
Yeah, I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant.
Okay, yeah, your audio went out there at the very beginning. Could you start from the beginning? Is it Pat Veith?
It's Veith.
Veith, okay.
Yes, yeah, and I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant.
Got it. Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
And someone under the name Clements.
Hi, I'm Pat Clements. I live at 3526 Bayard, and I'm currently trying to get my sound turned up. It's really, I can barely hear you.
Okay. Is it just me or is it everyone in the hearing?
I think it's everyone. I think it's, I just came off of a Teams meeting and the two never play nicely together. There's always something messed up when you go from one to the other.
Sure. Okay. You said you were a neighbor?
Yeah, NNSG47.
Said you were a neighbor, Mr. Clements?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome. And then finally, we have Tom Comey.
Yeah, Tom Comey. I'm a neighbor.
All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. On the applicant owner side, are we expecting anyone else to join us here today? Mr. Zobrist or Mr. Veith?
No, it's just me and Pat.
Great. All right, fantastic. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to read through the hearing script. This will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll get into it. So this is the January 10th, 2024 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. Again, I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the city. I'll be presiding over the hearing today. Case for us is case number ZH20230177. That's 3536 Bayard Drive. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and the potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. I'm going to start by asking the zoning plans examiner, Trey Sheldon, to give a very, very high level, basic overview of what exactly it is that the applicant is requesting here in terms of zoning relief. So only what they're requesting, zero analysis, just a high level summary of, essentially those first 3 lines of your staff report, what it is that they're asking for today. I'll then go to the applicant or the applicant's attorney or the applicant's agent to present the applicant's case. So again, what you're asking for, why you think it's appropriate, why I should grant the relief, anything else you want to tell me about the project. After that, I'll move to the public. And so each one of the neighbors, if they would like, will then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. Since the applicant is represented by an attorney, the applicant's attorney may cross-examine any person who has testified at this hearing. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. I will allow Trey Sheldon from the zoning department to provide a full summary of his staff report as well, but he is not subject to cross-examination. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So after all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make comments. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, let's see. Mr. Comey, if you're going to participate or provide any testimony at all, I will need your camera to be activated. Just an FYI, if you're not, you don't need to have it activated. I'm now going to swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing, then the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if you believe that's you and you know you'd like to say something, I'm going to collectively swear all those people in right now. If you're not certain, I can always swear you in later. But if you know you'd like to say something, if you could please take yourself off of mute at this time. And again, if you're going to be sworn in, have your camera activated. Raise your right hand. I'll need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, Ms. Comey?
I do.
Okay. Charles Pierce?
I do.
Okay, and Maggie Tall.
I do.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. All right. So let's go ahead, Trey. Again, I'm going to start with you. If you could tell us all why we're here today.
Sure. Well, this particular dwelling and some of the homes around it are within something called a hillside overlay district. And the way we determine setbacks, what's normally called setbacks, and height and so on in a hillside overlay is by doing something, calculating something called the maximum building envelope. And where there are adjacent dwellings that are in the same orientation as the subject property, in other words, that aren't too far off kilter or have some kind of panhandle lot, where they're more or less oriented the same way, you use averaging of both of those two properties to get you your setbacks rather than just the base zoning code. So in this particular instance, for example, on each side, you would average the properties on either side to the west and to the east. Sometimes properties' side setbacks are much bigger than they are in the district, sometimes not. In this particular instance, due to the current orientation of their house and what they're proposing, they need relief of 4 feet from the average front yard setback with maximum building envelope of 68.5 feet to allow a front yard setback of 64.5 feet. They also require hillside relief of 19 feet from the average right side setback. So that's the right sides of each of the adjacent properties averaged and then divided by 2. And that comes out to 58.5 feet. And they're requesting a right side yard setback of 39.5. Also, within hillsides, you need relief for anything exceeding 8 feet. It's probably the most typical form of relief that is asked for. But you need anything in excess of 8 feet of cumulative maximum excavation and fill requires relief. In this particular instance, they are just above that at 9.2 feet in order to get a foundation and a basement under this proposed addition.
Great. Thank you very much. That was perfect, Trey. Exactly what I was looking for. So to summarize, they're asking for a front yard setback of 64.5 feet, a right side yard setback of 39.5 feet, and a cumulative excavation and fill of 9.2 feet, which is approximately 1.2 feet over the maximum limit. Okay, having set the table with that, I'm going to now turn it over to either, is it Vythe? I'm sorry, Vythe? Pat Vythe?
Yeah, it is right, yeah. Yep.
Okay, great. I'm gonna turn it over to either Mr. Veith or Mr. Zobrist to get us started with the applicant's presentation.
Okay, great. Thanks. Can you hear me, Mr. Sturkey?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. As mentioned, my name is Patrick Veith, and I represent 3536 Bayard LLC and Zobrist Design Group. Thanks for having us today. And I just want to provide a brief history of my client's involvement with the property, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Zobrist to get into more details on the project itself. So historically, I just think it's important to know, my client purchased the property over 2 years ago in September of 2021. His initial plan was to subdivide this almost 2-acre lot into 2 conforming almost 1-acre lots and build a house on each lot. While this would have been compliant with the underlying zoning code, that plan was met with resistance from the neighbors because they did not want a lot split to occur. And based on that pushback, and in an effort to be a good neighbor himself, my client agreed not to split the lot. And in fact, he abandoned all plans he would have had for the property and just figured he'd just sell it, try to resell it as is. So my client listed the property for sale from around May of 2023, and the listing expired in December of 2023. And the market spoke loudly that there really were no material offers, and most potential buyers and agents indicated that the house was too dated and too small. So since my client was unable to sell the property, he really had no other choice but to remodel it, and then he's going to try to market it again and sell it. So this process involved not only a complete remodel of the interior, but also in addition to the existing structure. And that's why we're here today, just to hear a few variance requests related to that remodel project. My client has been at all times a good neighbor. He's listened to the neighbors, adjusted his plans accordingly. And even though that wasn't really in his best financial interest, he did it anyway. So all we're asking for now is a few variances that will allow my client to finally, after more than 2 years, move forward with this project. So, unless you have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Kurt to give some more specifics about the project itself.
Okay, great. I may have some questions later, but I'm gonna try and let Kurt go through. He probably will answer most of them, or he may answer some of them. So we'll go with that, Kurt. And Kurt, to the extent you're able to share your screen, I find that is very helpful when you have neighboring property owners involved that want to get a sense of what's actually going on here. If you have that available or any site plans available to sort of use as a reference as you go through, that's helpful. If not, I can pull something up too. I've got the staff report pulled up, and I can pull up the site plans as well, if that's helpful. But the floor is yours.
Great, thanks. My name's Kurt Zobrist. I'm with Zobrist Design Group. I don't have the option to put up on screen. I don't know how to do that. So I guess ultimately, if we need to pull something up, I'll leave that to you, David.
Sure.
But in general, we are requesting an addition to the east side of the existing structure to accommodate a master suite on the first floor, a lower level media room, and then a basement for storage below. This addition is going to allow the house to meet really what the market is asking for as far as size of space and so forth, to make the house kind of up to today's living styles. It is something to note that the existing house sits at an acute angle on the property. It doesn't sit per the normal parallel that you would with the street. The current corner of the house, I guess it would be the southwest corner of the house, does meet the underlying zoning requirements as far as front yard setback as an existing condition. However, it does not meet the averaging condition that exists today with the adjacent houses. Something to note is the new addition will sit beyond the current front corner of the house, exceeding about a 64-foot front yard setback. So almost double what the underlying setback is for the current underlying zoning. This is zoned SF20, just to get that into the record. Additionally, with the setback requirements, the side yard setback in the underlying zoning of SF20 is 10 feet. We are going to be close to 40 feet. So we will be 4 times the underlying zoning setback, which really gets skewed in general due to really one parcel on the street. If you were to look at a broader image of Bayard on the south side, or I'm sorry, on the north side of the street, you would see a little bit more reduced side yards than the directly adjacent property. So something to keep in mind that kind of this design layout meets kind of the middle ground of what the entire street of Bayard is doing versus just isolating 1 or 2 properties. And I think in the spirit of the zoning code, that is really the intent, is to meet kind of the general intent of the street and not just 1 or 2 properties. Our intent is to construct this addition, update the rest of the entire house to bring it to today's amenities, new windows, new siding, and so forth to make it look like a new house when it's all finished and done. And we picked the right side of the house for the addition due to several things. One, we had an extensive geotech report done on the property, being that we're in the hillside, and the right side of the property has much more stable soils to accommodate construction versus the west side of the property, and so forth. So that's one of the reasons we decided on the right side. Additionally, with the existing house structure, with where the garage and the kitchen and everything is, the right side or east side of the house is the most logical place for the space that we need to add to the house. So the site really dictated what we wanted to do in regards to making this house more livable. And with that, in conjunction with that, there is a failing retaining wall that is on the west side of the property. It is leaning. We had contacted, I think, zoning, and there was supposed to be a note in the report stating that we want to include that in this hillside variance request, so that we can replace it with a proper wall that is not failing.
Okay.
That's it.
Great. Thanks, Kurt. Let me just share a demonstrative here as I ask a few questions about this. Can everyone see my screen here and see the site plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So this is Bayard Drive here, just to orient everyone. And then the sort of darker outline here is the existing residence's footprint. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so the proposal today is to add this area here, this proposed addition here. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's what requires both the front and the side setback relief.
Correct. And if you look at that drawing, you will see a secondary gray or dashed line, which is, if you zoom in some, it's showing the hillside overlay average right there to the right of the proposed addition.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
this is
a calculated hillside overlay.
So this is the maximum building envelope that Trey referenced. So the zoning code requires that you keep the addition within this dotted line. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So this project will only exceed the zoning code requirements by whatever this shape is here, extending past that line. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And Trey also mentioned that you're asking for some excavation relief from the hillside standards of 8 feet to have a 9.2 foot total excavation and fill. Where will that work be done? Will it be done where the addition is?
Yeah, so that's mostly on the south end of the addition towards Bayard, because that's
Okay.
the topography there. As the addition goes in, excavation goes to 0, and it's essentially a walkout at the rear of the addition. The reason we are at 9 feet is dictated more by the existing structure and trying to line up footers for structural reasons, and foundation slabs in the basement for also for the reduction of steps and so forth in that lower level.
Okay. Great. You also mentioned a retaining wall. Where is the retaining wall on this side? Is that where inside the yellow here?
Far left of the drawing, if you keep going a little more, there's a dark line that runs from Bayard, perpendicular to Bayard right there, that your
Yeah.
mouse is on.
Yeah.
That wall is, you can see in the survey plan how it is on the other property. That's due
Yeah.
mostly because that's the top of the wall, and the wall is failing and it's leaning towards the property to the west. And so
Okay.
we would like to take that wall out and rebuild it properly and make it more safe.
Got it. But that's not actually a part of the requested zoning relief today, right? That's from a zoning perspective.
The biggest
Permitted
thing
by-
we need to
permitted
make
by
sure
right.
it was part of this hearing is due to height. We don't have the final engineering done on it, but if it exceeds 8 feet, it's an existing condition, and we didn't want to have to come back through Hillside to get approval to replace that wall.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions I have right now. Anything else you wanted to add before we move on to public comment, either from you or Mr. Veith?
I'm good with our presentation.
Okay, great.
Yes, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. I will just sort of go off the orientation of my screen here. I'm going to go back to Ms. Comey. Ms. Comey, if you could unmute. After Ms. Comey, I'll go to Charles Pierce.
Good afternoon. Thank you for convening all of us. I'd just like to indicate that we're quite appreciative of the fact that there will not be a lot split with two houses, and getting that wall fixed will be extremely helpful too.
Okay, great. Anything else you wanted to share about the project?
Not now. Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, Charles Pierce.
Sure. Yeah, I would just echo what Margaret said on the appreciation for the reconsideration of the lot split. This is obviously a much more favorable plan from my perspective, and I think from the neighbor's perspective. And your initial instructions, I don't recall if I'm allowed to ask a question or not, but if so, I would just be curious as to any more perspective on the failing west retaining wall in terms of what the group may be thinking about in terms of materials, design, and so forth.
Kurt, you can go ahead if you want to just answer that directly.
Yes, we haven't made a final decision on the exact materials. We are working with the geotech engineer of the project to determine what can be built there within the limits of setbacks and the amount of ground space we have to give it stabilization. There's different types of walls that require less excavation and interruption, and so we're trying to work through that. Ideally, it'll be something appealing that fits with the character of the house.
Great, thank you.
I'll go over to Maggie Tall and then Mr. Clements after that. Ms. Tall, if you would unmute, is there anything you'd like to tell us?
Sorry about that. At the end of the school day, so it's a little crazy here.
Sure, no problem.
So anyway, no, I'm a house that requires the adjoining house that requires the side setback. I have no issues with that. The only thing I would say, Dr. Faulkner, who lives down on Erie, I think he and Eric Russo of the Hillside Trust, I think, had sent in some paperwork to be added to this. He has, a lot of erosion issues currently, which again are not Mr. Zober's fault, but it is the nature of the hillside. And so they were just concerned about not exacerbating any current, making them any worse than they already are with the addition. But in terms of, I have no objections. I second the other neighbors that were very pleased with this new addition. We know Mrs. Zobrist will do a nice job, and we're appreciative that there would not be a lot split. That was definitely not in line with what the rest of the neighborhood is.
Okay, great. Yeah, and the letter you referenced, I did receive that earlier this week. It will be a part of the record. Just some guidance from Eric Russo on some hillside stability measures.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Ms. Tall. Mr. Clemens, did you want to add anything? If so, if you could unmute.
Sure. I looked at the plans. I think everything looks great. I also am very appreciative of the fact that we're not getting a lot split, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing what Zerber's design group can do with that space. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Mr. Sheldon, going to turn it over to you.
I did want to note that there was a little discrepancy. I did a bunch of measurements. You'll note that the averaging was about for the right side setback was to my mind about 5 feet off by the time it was averaged, because the house on the left yeah, doesn't present a problem for me, but I had some of my colleagues also run it. All the other measurements, when we calibrated it with with cages and so on, it matched up dead on. So I don't know whether it was just a typo or what, but it appears that it's about around 80 feet, I believe, from the left, the corner of the lot to the left to their property line. It is kind of an extra lot. It's a non-buildable lot, so we'd consider it a lot of record. So it does pass over technically 2 parcels, but that just kind of skews if anything, that kind of skews the situation even more in terms of what Mr. Zobrist used to what he was discussing, he and Mr. Arnold, in terms of what they wrote to. It skews that even more because it has an even bigger side setback. So I do completely concur with Mr. Zobrist's comments that in the context of most of the rest of the houses in this neighborhood, these are unusually large and irregularly configured lots. If you go westward along Bayard, especially the south side of it, and then the street kind of snakes down to Erie. And as you go down there, the houses are, granted they're on smaller lots, but they have setbacks they're large homes, but they have setbacks that are much more in conformity with the or with the existing base zoning setbacks. So 10, 15, maybe 20-foot setback, not 80. So it is a bit of we sometimes run into these where for those of you that are just neighbors, sometimes we run into these where the maximum building envelope skews it so much that it would practically render an existing house unbuildable, like someone couldn't do anything with it. So, I feel that that's that way on the right side here, where, I mean, they are 3 times the, I think 4 times the required side yard setback there, and many times as far as the front. I do also concur and agree that the southwest corner of the new addition would be substantially further back, several feet, perhaps as much as 10 feet further back than the existing, where we would measure to the front yard, which is at the existing southwest corner of the house. I think that the excavation and fill is unusual to even, unless someone designs a house that's completely compliant in a very moderate sloped hillside. It is very difficult to not be in front of David for excavation and fill when you're doing a basement. It is just, it's tough to meet that standard where you're doing a full basement and having the footers go all the way down to where they're safe with frost and so on. So that's a very modest request. As to the wall, I couldn't really run any potential relief as to that because you have to have actual drawings to show what that is. If it's under 8 feet, if the wall doesn't exceed 8 feet, then you wouldn't require any relief at all. And if you're really not disturbing the soil that much, if you're just kind of replacing it in the same extent where it is and just shoring it up and making it better, we sometimes don't consider that to be new excavation. So there's 2 things to keep in mind on your end. Once you get the engineering back, you will of course require a separate building permit for that from the additions anyhow. So you would have to submit whole separate plans for that and make sure that that dovetails with the your existing geotech report. They might want to go back and tweak that a little bit to include any analysis for the retaining wall. I think Mr. Cluck, I believe Ms. Tall mentioned something about some erosion issues around with neighbors, and everyone seemed to appreciate the retaining wall, especially the Coneys seem to appreciate that. So, I think just making sure that that's covered in the geotech report to know that thing's going to be stable is important. Is there anything else I can answer any questions or on anybody's behalf?
No, I think that's it. Thanks, Trey. Appreciate that testimony and appreciate your work on the staff report here. Going to turn it back over to Mr. Veith and Mr. Zobrist. Anything you wanted to say to any in response to anything you've heard or any questions?
Excuse me, Tom Comey.
Yeah. Hi, Tom.
You didn't kind of come back to me. I would ask Mr.
Tom,
I like-
I'm sorry. Tom, I'm sorry. If you'd like to participate, you need to activate your camera.
My camera's up, I think, isn't it?
It is not. I just sent you a prompt to start it. It's
Yeah,
usually in the
I got
bottom
it.
left.
I got it. Here we go.
Hey, David, you didn't, he's not sworn.
Am I up now?
Yeah, you are. Mr. Comey, can you raise your right hand?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What would you like to add?
I would ask that when the engineering is completed on the wall, that would keep the neighbors informed as to, what the results are and what type of materials and what the appearance of it would look like, especially for Mr. Pierce.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. I'm going to turn it back over. To Mr. Zobrist and Mr. Veith. Anything you want to say in response to any of the testimony you've heard? And then anything else in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here today?
No, I think we're good. We certainly appreciate all the time the staff has spent on this, so I think we're good presented.
Okay. Mr. Zobrist.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for your time, David and Trey on reviewing all of this.
Sure. I will echo what Trey said without drawings and something to look at in regards to that retaining wall. I'm not sure that I can grant any zoning relief now, particularly not even knowing what the extent of the zoning relief would be. And so I think Trey alluded to the fact that you can work with them to see if zoning relief or a variance would even be necessary for that particular wall. But if it is, or they determine that it is, you may have to come back through for the wall, just because we don't have anything to actually examine or to approve right now. So, but hopefully you can work with zoning and figure out some way to avoid having to come back through here. But having said all of that, I've had a chance to review the application materials, the staff report. Based on that and based on the testimony that I've heard here today, I think it would be impractical to strictly enforce the zoning code to this property and to this particular application. And so based on that, I am going to approve the zoning request. I have to formalize that approval in a written decision. As I mentioned at the beginning, that typically takes about 2 weeks. As soon as I finish that decision, I'll put it in a PDF, and then I'll email that decision to everybody here who's in the hearing today. So you all will get a copy of that really just moments after it's complete. That will outline all of the sort of legal standards that I go through, and of course what exactly the relief is and any conditions of that relief as well. So that'll all be included in that decision. Mr. Zobrist says, you've been through this before. As soon as you have that decision, Trey can approve the zoning permitting on his end, and if there's no other building permits standing in the way, you can get started on the project. Any questions from anyone about any of that? Okay, great. Well, I want to thank everyone again for their time and their testimony. Really appreciate the neighbors showing up to this hearing and providing some additional perspective from the ground. That's always very helpful for me. If anyone has any questions in the meantime, I'm happy to field those. My email's on the screen in my little square there. So feel free to reach out to me directly and to Mr. Veith and Mr. Zobrist. If you want a status update on the decision at any time, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to provide that to you. Okay. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you again.